Email us freedom@charliekirk.com and subscribe to our podcast. That is the Charlie Kirk Show podcast page. Become a member today, members.charliekirk.com. That is members.charliekirk.com. Joining us now is Mike Davis. Mike, welcome to the program. Mike, we have not talked about Mr. Boasberg for a couple days, and I want to talk about all the courts and kind of how they're acting. I first want a macro analysis from you. What is your take on the judicial activism and the pernicious nature of the unelected judiciary undermining the will of the sovereign?
President Trump campaigned on the fact he's going to hire Elon Musk. He's going to set up the Department of Government Efficiency, and DOGE is going to go after waste, fraud, and abuse in our federal government. And we've seen a lot, and it's just the tip of the iceberg. President Trump also campaigned on the fact that he's going to secure our borders. He's going to designate Tren de Aragua as a foreign terrorist organization, and he's going to get these terrorists the hell out of our country. And the American people like what they heard. And on November 5th, they gave President Trump a broad, decisive electoral mandate. 312 electoral votes, all 7 swing states, the popular vote. We kept the House. President Trump won back the Senate with a comfortable margin. I'm glad the Senate finally understands they wouldn't have a majority for Republicans if it weren't for President Trump's decisive win on November 5th. And President Trump is doing the unthinkable in Washington. He's actually doing what he promised American voters he would do, and he's doing it fast. The first time he ran, he had never ran for office. He had never served in office. He made mistakes in his first term, even though it was an incredibly successful first term. A big mistake was personnel. He's not making those mistakes this time. He had 4 years in office. He had 4 years to reflect. He faced the Biden lawfare, the unprecedented Republican ending lawfare. He's ready to govern on day one. And the last line of Trump resistance is these activist judges. You have these Democrats, partisan plaintiffs and lawyers run into these Democrat activist judges, particularly in Washington, D.C., and they are trying to sabotage the presidency. They're trying to sabotage President Trump because of policy and political disagreements. President Trump is not trying to steal Congress's legislative power under Article 1. President Trump is not trying to steal the Supreme Court's judicial power under Article 3. The president is exercising core Article 2 executive powers under Article 2, and you have these activist judges sabotaging him. These are judicial saboteurs, and not only is it extremely lawless, it's getting very dangerous. You had a judge in D.C., a Canadian foreign citizen to this day. It has a lifetime appointment on the bench, Judge Ali. They bragged, the Biden administration bragged, he's the first Muslim, he's the first Arab federal judge in D.C. Several weeks ago, this judge ordered the president to send out $2 billion in foreign aid over the president's national security review to make sure we're not funding Hamas terrorists to kill Americans under the guise of humanitarian relief in Gaza, or we're not funding waste, fraud, and abuse like transgender mice research in Kazakhstan or whatever hellhole we were funding that research through USAID. The Supreme Court failed to stop this, Judge Ali. And 2 weeks later, you have this D.C. Obama judge, Jeb Boasberg. Not only he held a Saturday hearing last Saturday, two Saturdays ago, where he exposed an ongoing military, law enforcement, and intel operation putting American allied lives in grave danger. He even ordered planes to turn around with Tren de Aragua, foreign terrorists, and MS-13 international gangbangers. This judge thought he could not only expose this military operation, but order the president to turn around planes. We saw in El Salvador that this president had a massive security footprint of military, law enforcement, and intel officials ready to accept these terrorists. We did not have that same footprint in America. How would Jeb Boasberg have known what we had in America for security? How would Jeb Boasberg have known the fuel on the...
I mean, but then what is the recourse? He's just going to keep doing this and ignore people. And so impeachment is not going to happen, and that's largely a waste of time. We just don't have the votes to do that. So then how do we rein in this judicial despotism? Spring into action this season. It's time to put American meat on your table and support the ranchers who've been feeding this country for generations. GoodRanchers.com delivers high-quality American-raised meat to your doorstep. And right now, you can get free bacon, ground beef, seed oil-free chicken nuggets, or salmon for a year, and $40 off, a discount they've never offered before. Head to GoodRanchers.com and show your support for American ranchers today. Good Ranchers, American meat delivered.
Well, I would say this on several fronts, Charlie. I was the chief counsel for nominations on the Senate Judiciary Committee. I had the oversight portfolio for the federal judiciary, right? And I know how these judges think, and I know how the Chief Justice thinks. I clerked on the Supreme Court and was around the Chief Justice. Personally a pleasant guy, but he operates in a very political way. So it's time, if these activist judges want to take off their judicial robes and climb into the political arena and throw political punches like we saw with Judge Ali and Judge Boasberg, we need to throw political counterpunches. And that means going after their jurisdiction. That means going after their funding. And yes, it means having impeachment as leverage. It's not a waste of time. Even if we don't have the votes in the Senate to remove them, it's the mere threat of impeachment. It's the mere sword of Damocles over their head. It's the scarlet letter these judges would have if they faced an impeachment inquiry. They don't want that. I know they don't want that. And so you use impeachment as the sword of Damocles over their heads to get them to understand that if they keep being activist judges, this is not judicial review, what these judges are doing. This is judicial sabotage. It is a clear violation of the separation of powers. This is not judicial power they're exercising. They're trying to tell the president that he has to turn around planes during a military operation. Last time I checked, Jeb Boasberg is not a black trans woman, so I don't think Joe Biden would have hired him to be an air traffic controller, and he's certainly not the commander-in-chief who can order the president to stop in the middle of military operations and turn them around, and then doubling down on his danger. He's asking the Justice Department to come in and reveal these classified or highly secret military operations. Why would a foreign leader want to deal with a president of the United States on a high-risk operation like this Salvadorian president just did, if the mission is going to get exposed publicly because an activist judge held a Saturday hearing? It puts American and allied lives in grave danger. And if those planes would have turned around, this Salvadorian president would have been waiting there with hundreds of government officials to accept these terrorists, and they didn't show up. That would have humiliated a foreign ally. It makes it less likely they'll do business with us. That undermines the president's power as the commander-in-chief, his power to conduct foreign affairs on behalf of the country. And so I would say this directly to the Chief Justice, John Roberts. You need to get your judicial house in order. And if you don't, Congress is going to do it for you. I know that there is appetite to do this because I'm working with House and Senate leaders on this bill. And I'll tell you what, that there will be 60 votes if we have a bill that works with people like Sheldon Whitehouse to bring ethics reform to the Supreme Court, which is long what Sheldon Whitehouse is doing. So this is very serious, and I hope the Chief Justice understands how serious this is when he lets his judicial saboteurs destroy the president.
Okay, stay there, Mike Davis. This is a huge issue, and I want to get even further deeper into this. Is there a moment where President Trump, his administration, should say, we're just not going to listen to you, man. We're not going to do this. And it is time for the Supreme Court to intervene. And I hope everybody in the audience understands this, that two partner countries of ours, Brazil and Israel, are living under similar judicial despotism, but it is far, far worse. If you have Brazil and Israel, they're basically controlled by an unelected Supreme Court that calls the shots, that can impeach presidents, that can overturn laws. district courts should not have the authority to enjoin the entire country. Is there a moment where you would advise President Trump and his team to flat out ignore an injunction from a district court judge?
Yes, and I've done this very publicly with Judge Boasberg's lawless, dangerous order 2 Saturdays ago when he ran into court and said that the president had to turn around planes full of terrorists and bring them to America. And I don't say this lightly. I've never called for anyone to ignore a judge's order. I've never called for an impeachment of a judge like this, and I've done both with Judge Boasberg because it is not only so lawless what he did. Not only does he not have the jurisdiction to do what he did, he does not have the power to do what he did. It's very dangerous what he did. And if the president would have complied with that temporary restraining order and turned around those planes full of terrorists, or the president would reveal these sensitive, confidential, classified military operation details to this judge, it is going to cause severe damage to our national security and the president's ability to conduct foreign relations on behalf of America. Again, why would a foreign leader want to do business with the president if an activist judge in America is going to expose the military operation, cause the operation to cease, sabotage the military operation, and create political and personal risk for the foreign leader? He had hundreds of officials awaiting these terrorists in El Salvador, and he's standing there, he's standing there looking stupid if we don't actually deliver these terrorists, and if we don't follow through, this president is humiliated, and it puts him at risk because now these terrorists have made him and his family a target.
This is wrong on so many levels. What is the battle plan here, Mike? So you talk about potentially impeachment. What else is there? If you were to design the master plan, you are the supreme general of the Allied forces, the supreme commander. You are Dwight D. Eisenhower. What is the attack plan? Go 1, 2, 3, 4. We got a couple minutes remaining.
This is so easy. And there's an audience of one here, and it's the Chief Justice. The Chief Justice needs to get his judicial house in order, or Congress is going to do it for him. You are going to see a scenario where Boasberg the clown, this activist judge in D.C., is going to keep digging in, doubling down, and you're going to see the president of the United States have to ignore him. That's going to be his constitutional duty, to ignore this lawless, dangerous order, because it puts our national security at risk. It makes it hard for the president to conduct foreign affairs. And when that happens, the American people are going to be behind the president. And when the federal judiciary loses its legitimacy with the American people, it loses everything. It does not have an army. Judge Boasberg's law clerks are not going to be able to turn around planes. Even if he holds people in contempt, the president doesn't have to follow through on those contempt orders. He can pardon people in contempt. He cannot have the executive branch arrest people. This is the red line, and the Chief Justice needs to understand he needs to get his judicial house in order. They need to move forward in the House with impeachment inquiries. They need to cut funding. They need to change jurisdiction. Judges have a modest but crucial role. It is to decide cases or controversies for parties before the court with redressable claims. That's it. They wear robes, not capes. It's not their job to set national policy. It's not their job to fly around the world and save terrorists. They have a more modest but crucial role, and that's Article 3 under our Constitution.
One would think, final point here, just to reiterate something you said previously, John Roberts and the U.S. Supreme Court could put an end to this. Is that right? They could send a statement, and I believe, I have no inside information to believe this, okay? But I believe, based on public remarks, that Clarence Thomas is chomping at the bit. I think he believes, based on previous opinions, that this nationwide injunction fury needs to be put to a stop. And I believe Alito agrees. Now, whether or not Amy Coney Barrett, Keg City Cav and Gorsuch, we'll see what happens. Final thoughts, Mike Davis.
You saw Justice Alito put out a powerful dissent when Judge Ali ordered the president to send $2 billion out the door to his Hamas terrorist friends and transgender mice research, right? And we can't have these judges take over the president's powers, especially dealing with commander-in-chief powers and foreign affairs powers. It is very dangerous. The judges are not equipped to do this. They are not equipped to write laws through nationwide injunctions, through TROs. The Chief Justice has to get his judicial house in order. And I promise the Chief Justice, if that does not happen, there is going to be a severe backlash, political backlash from Congress. It's going to go after your funding. It's going to go after your power, and it's going to go after impeachment.
Got to run. Mike Davis, thank you so much. We are taking back our country from the black robe coup.